This short film is about the success of 3 students with disabilities on professional courses. It tells the story of the support they received and how it helped them. My name is Michelle Butler. I'm a mental wellbeing support officer employed by the university. I support students with mental health problems and Asperger's syndrome and help to implement reasonable adjustments.
My name is Martyn. I'm a principal lecturer in the School of Nursing and Midwifery. I'm a disability liaison tutor and advise on reasonable adjustment within the course, including the clinical setting.
The honest and actual true answer is I wanted to be a dancer and I couldn't. This was a way of working with, my thought was I could then go into the dance industry, work with dancers, even though I couldn't actually be one myself. Through doing the course, my thoughts actually changed, and now I absolutely love physiotherapy. I love the buzz you get from working with someone and seeing them progress, and I've no idea whether I'm going to go down the dance route now.
I've always believed that if I try hard enough and there are people around to support me, I could become a teacher. That was my goal, and I believed I could do it. And I had the desire as well. I really wanted to see it happen.
I did a mental health nursing course, and it was 3 years, well, it was supposed to be 3 years long. I did it over 3.5 years. And I decided to do it because I'd had some experiences of being a mental health service user myself, which led me to want to work in that area. Really terrifying to begin with. Like, the first day was was really frightening, and it was just like there was so much to take on board in the first few weeks, just in terms of like the timetable and where I had to be and the people that I had to talk to and the things that I had to do practically. And then every single lecture or session that I went to at the university was incredibly emotive as well, and triggered lots of my old stuff about being a patient or being a carer.
Very nerve-wracking. No one I knew from my school was on the same sort of university course. I was completely on my own. So very scary. It took me a long time to settle in, several months actually, until I could even just go out with a few friends that I'd made.
There have been difficulties. It's taken me longer than most students. Partly because I didn't follow advice. I was told early on to get a special needs assessment so I could get specialist support from the people within the university that knew how these things were done, and I didn't follow up on that. My first placement I started and it didn't go very well. I was given counsel to improve. I was trying to improve, but the school said due to the difficulties that have arisen with this student that wouldn't arise with most students, we have to let this student go, which was a harrowing experience.
I stopped eating. I used food as a way of controlling. Obviously being in a new place, I felt really, not in control of what was going on. Food was the one thing I could control. I was a couple of weeks into the placement, and I couldn't even talk to patients. The most simplest thing you should be able to do as a physiotherapist, and I couldn't. I had my clinical visit from the university. They basically took one look at me, said, no, I'm taking you home, taking you off this placement. Because there was these people making all these decisions for me, and I felt like I had no say. And I still, in my mind, was like, thought, I can do this, I can cope.
But I'm finding that I can't relax. I mean, I'm awake all night and worrying about everything that's happening on the course already. Finding that in lessons, in the sessions, I'm just finding it really hard to be in the room without having to leave for 100 loo breaks a session just to kind of get some space from it all. I'm finding it really difficult to concentrate on. I can't read anything. I'm taking the information very easily. And numeracy was a particularly stressful thing for me. We were doing drug calculations, and I kept on getting them wrong, and then having these awful thoughts about how I was going to get that wrong when I was a nurse, and then people were going to die, and I had to get them right, and the pressure was just intense.
Now, as a teacher, there'll be lots of people saying you have to do this and you have to do this, and the head teacher will want to speak to me. But I found it very difficult to deal with all those different sources of information. And I wasn't therefore able to focus on what I was meant to be doing particularly well. It certainly threw me off task a few times. The support I received was for special needs, well, I don't know if that's the word you would use, for a specialist tutor to visit me twice a week on placement and to discuss how it's going, what's not going so well, and what I can do to make things better.
There was a meeting at the university with myself and my mum, the course leader, our placement organiser, and the disability team. It was about, I think it was about my next placement. I think it was about maybe just a week before I had to go out on the placement to say, this is the placement we've found for you, this is what we're going to do next.
And Kathy beginning to talk about things like the university perhaps being able to be more flexible around things, so that I didn't have to be the one just being really flexible around this really rigid kind of structure that the course seemed to be at first. So that was really helpful.
There'd been adjustments made, so I was on part-time hours, which meant I didn't have to try and cope with a full day, 5 days a week, which at that point would have still absolutely exhausted me. I had, although I didn't know when they sort of organised the placement, I had an extremely supportive educator.
There were times when I got in touch with Carol and Peps by phone, and they were, you could tell in their voices they'd had a long day, but they still said, "Hiya Matthew, how are you?" which they didn't need to say, they could just say, "What do you want?" But they developed a relationship with me that was positive, and they listened.
This big kind of circle of people around me that had kind of just carried me through it. And it was my achievement, and it always felt like my achievement. You know, I never felt like any of you thought that it was a drag, you know, to work with me, or like, you know, it's like you were just facilitating it.
It was only later on, sort of throughout my placements, when I started moving on to the level 3 placements, I then had a mentor in place, which was brilliant.
I was involved a lot more in the process of managing my own development, so I was often copied into emails that were sent about me from different departments within the university and outside. When I was referred to having a special needs assessment, I was copied into that. Experience, and you only get experience through practice, but when you're taking on a trainee teacher such as myself, you really need to have the experience first through normal, conventional teacher trainee students, and then you go into something a bit more specialised.
I think I've got more confidence. I can go into sort of a job or a new team or even an interview and think, I can do this, I got through 3 years of my course, I can do this.
Kind of realised that I was really angry at the staff because they had this us and them attitude about staff versus patients, and what I realised was that I'd had an us and them attitude too, and I kind of didn't want to be identified with the staff, and that I was being really harsh towards the staff whilst being very kind of kind and empathic towards the patients, and that I needed to kind of turn some of that kindness and empathy towards the staff and understand where they were coming from a little bit more, and I've been working on that ever since.
It's very important to get away from thinking in black and white terms about a person's health or capacity. Often students with mental health problems and Asperger's are left without adequate support when they come to university, as they are seen as being well or able, when the reality is often much more complex. They are often left by the mental health services or social services at points of transition, and this is just when they could use more support. Students feel that they should not request help, as this doesn't fit with their perceptions of what it means to be training to be a professional. These issues are a major reason why it can be so difficult to get through a professional training.
So what has emerged from this partnership work? Firstly, the need to take risks. The need to engage with the dilemmas facing the student, as the solution is not already out there, so you might need to be creative and innovative. Secondly, the need to engage with the reality of the situation. The criteria for measuring achievement remains the same. The student is ultimately responsible and needs to be supported to maintain control. The need to talk honestly. The need to use your judgment when someone is too ill or incapacitated, whilst leaving the door open. And finally, the need to be mindful about the politics of discrimination, acknowledging that there might be resistance from the profession.
Having special needs is difficult, and what helps is having people that want to understand. So thank you for being here today and trying to take that time, and we all appreciate it very much, so thank you very much.